So the 2XKO alpha is out pretty soon, or maybe it's out by the time you're watching this, and it's got a lot going on. It's obviously a pretty high power level, pretty messed up game, and you can also see that by the fact that it's made by a lot of Guilty Gear and Marvel players and all that, right? And what that generally means is that offense and defense are both really strong, but one particular defensive mechanic seems to be the most important to me. Honestly, when I first fully grasped how strong it was, I kind of was a little bit of a hater, since I thought it would limit design space pretty hard in how centralizing it would be, but it's since grown on me because it allows them to make offense really potent and also some other stuff that I'll go into later. So let's get into the mechanic itself. It's called Retreating Guard, and Retreating Guard is this backdash basically out of block stun. It's a low 20s action. I think it's around 21, 22. And generally, as a rule of thumb, when you do it on a jab, you're really minus. When you do it on a medium, you're slightly minus. When you do it on a heavy, you're around even. And when you do it on a special, so like this game's S1 and S2 moves, you're slightly plus. Let's talk about what it's useful for. It's good for trying to get out of tick throws. It's good to get out of long-range assist calls that would normally lock you down and then let your opponent run all the way up from neutral and then just, start running their offense. Spacing traps, honestly, basically everything mid-screen. And this all sounds pretty good, but it actually isn't the part of it that's so crazy to me. So basically every other defensive mechanic in this game, when compared to Retreating Guard, will actually show you why it's so crazy. So let's get into them. Parry is not only baitable, but it also costs meter. It only costs meter on failure, in that if you hit a successful parry, you get your meter refunded. But it means that, number one, you can't do parry at the start of a match. And also, of course, it does cost meter if you're wrong. And like I said, it's baitable. And Retreating Guard is not baitable, unlike parry, and also another one, Get Up Attack, which is really, really strong and also does not have a high-low restriction like parry does, but, it's baitable because, unlike those mechanics, Retreating Guard it does have recovery, right? We said it's a 21, 22-ish total action, but you can block during its recovery. And also, you can do it out of block stun, and parry and get up attack have to be inputted as reversal actions. Get up attack especially only on wake up, right? So let's talk about how you beat it. The main way that it has been designed around to be beaten is to hit it low. So it is recovery during which you can block, but you can only block high. So if you try and Retreating Guard and then they catch you, quote unquote catch you with a mid, it's not really going to do anything, right? But if you get caught with a low, then you're going to get comboed. And because this mechanic is so powerful in contexts outside of what I just said, basically, okay, saying all is a little much, but a very, very, solid part of 2XKO's mid-screen offense revolves around putting a lot of lows in your strings to attack Retreating Guard. But the thing is, you aren't always close enough to do this. Generally, in a lot of fighting games, mids are going to be bigger than lows, big standing attacks, projectiles, etc., right? So it means that Retreating Guard is especially useful in long range, like I said, mediums and heavies, right? In order to escape getting potentially locked down by your opponent doing medium, heavy, special, call assist, etc., right? You can Retreating Guard out of that situation before it gets too bad. And obviously the devs thought about this, right? And so most characters also will have a sweep to attack it from even further, right? Notably, not all of them. For example, Echo, right? Echo doesn't have a sweep, but it's a good thing that Echo doesn't have a sweep. Trust me, because he has kind of everything else. But whatever, right? Yeah. And the way these sweeps work is that they're usually pretty safe on block, and it's because they aren't cancelable on block, unlike most other moves in this game. But they are cancelable on hit, which means when you input a sweep on block, you're basically buffering your special move behind it, because if you do hit their Retreating Guard, right, you're going to get a whole combo, and if not, you're just minus 4 or whatever. For example, I think Daria's sweep is minus 3 or 4 or something, right? Another way you can play around it is you actually the flash for Retreating Guard, the character glowing blue, is on frame 1 of the animation, and it means that you can actually react to Retreating Guard with tag. And like we said, it's a low 20s action, which means if you react to it with tag, you're actually going to be slightly plus, and you can respond and then you know, catch your opponent trying to take their turn back and then hit them. This is really hard to do. It's definitely not something I have done in my like very brief time like trying the game at like, you know, Evo Japan and stuff, but it is, I have seen it happen one time, and I think it's actually something that is going to happen a lot more in the future. Back to what I was on earlier, I think the reason it's so cool, despite it being so like insanely powerful, is that it really creates like a stark difference between mid-screen and corner offense. In that mid-screen offense, like obviously offense in this game is still really strong, right? You have like all these characters doing all these things to you. Like Echo can do this roll, and like Darius can, you know, use apprehend. Actually, you can't retreating guard out of guard crush states like charged heavies and apprehend, for example. But yeah, anyway, offense is really strong even mid-screen, but it makes offense in the corner like way more terrifying because the game's, I would say, main defensive mechanic is not entirely removed, but it's significantly weaker because you actually can use it in the corner, because unlike the other defensive mechanics in this game, which are either baitable or cost meter, retreating guard also builds you meter. I think it's around like 10 to 15% of a bar. If your opponent is doing strings with a lot of mids or even like highs, like if they're in the air and stuff, right? You actually can use retreating guard even while in the corner in order to just build you more meter, right? And this can be called out on top of lows by throwing it, since it's recovery during which you can block, but you can't tech throws. But yeah, generally, you know, it's not super useful in the corner, and it means that like you get punished really hard for like, you know, losing neutral and letting your opponent like walk you to the corner, which generally is not always as big of a deal in like versus fighters compared to like, you know, Street Fighter and stuff like that. So I think it's a really interesting way of like punishing you for getting cornered while also having the game being super high power level. So yeah, that's about all I have to say for now about retreating guard. I think it's really important, and like if you want to, you know, go far in this game or whatever, even if you just want to like beat up your friends in the alpha, it's really important to learn how to use. But I also think it's really cool. It has a lot of potential to be like a really like deep mechanic in how it's used and how you play around it, and I'm sure there's a lot that I missed, for example, right? I'll probably like maybe make a follow-up video when I find like more cool uses of it in the alpha. But yeah, for now, let me know what you think, and if you want more like these types of videos and stuff like that. Thanks for watching.